Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am Dungeon Master or Game Master Bloodworth, and as you can see by the graphics here, I am going to be talking somewhat briefly on what roles should a DM or GM keep behind the screen, or in other words, keep them secret. And This is a recent conversation that had sprouted up among several YouTubers. One I will mention is DM James was actually covering one of these videos from another content creator, and I was going to talk a little bit further with DM James about this, but I figured let me just do my take first. And as someone who does most of my game mastery is online, um, most of my roles are actually in plain view. But when I'm running at conventions, I likewise do all of the combat roles in plain view, and I'm going to go into further detail with that. I know one of the suggestions was made in those videos and response videos to keep the Game Master screen laid down flat on the ground. Sorry about that, spam. Uh, to leave the screen laying flat on, and I guess only lifting it up when you have to do something. It was a little bit unclear as to, then why would you even need it there, kind of thing is what came to my mind. And I do like having the Game Master screen there for keeping several things that I think are important secret. So let me get right into that. I'm going to go to the next screen and talk about it. So here we have what roles should be secret. So the GM roles, random encounters. Now I find that, like, when I am rolling on a random encounters chart, um, sometimes, especially wilderness random encounters, sometimes I end up with something that just doesn't make very much sense, or it will have repeated itself several times just by the stroke of luck, and it's like, oh geez, they're going to encounter another group of demi-humans, or another group of goblins, or just something that they have faced over and over again. I also don't want them to all of a sudden, run into an ancient red dragon, and I don't mind so much them encountering a dragon, but that encounter would then have to be tweaked to the point of saying, like, you see it in the distance. It apparently, depending on what they do, it may not, and hopefully doesn't, notice them. And but now they know that there is an ancient red dragon, somewhere in their region, and that might become a source of adventuring later on in their leveling up, in their experience. Um, but for the most part, I have an issue with the random encounter tables where you get some weird things that just don't fit the situation that they're currently in. And so I will re-roll random encounters sometimes, or sometimes I'll just say, you know what, a random encounter is going to occur, and then I pick something from the region that exists there, and one that I think would be interesting for the players to encounter. Maybe it's the first time that they would encounter that, and then somehow try to build off of that thing. So that is one thing that I do in secret. Next thing is surprise. Um, I will roll for both sides to see if either side has generated a surprise. I know my player characters in the group. I know which ones are only surprised on a 1 to 3 out of a d6. I know which ones can surprise on a 1 or a 2 or whatnot. So I know where that comes into play, but when I roll surprise behind the scenes. Sometimes I sometimes I think that the situation just a requires a situation like only part of the group will get only part of the group will have an initiative roll to begin with, whether they're surprised or not. And that's just because of the direction or the situation that has occurred from that encounter. Um, Other times, I would think that the player characters would have a surprise regardless of the role. So a lot of these things here, come into the rulings, not rules kind of determination that a game master or a dungeon master is going to make as well. But continuing down the list here, monster saving throws, perception checks, and morale checks. Uh, the players are not going to know whether or not a monster actually makes its saving throw. However, let's say they're casting a spell. Um, if if the magic user, let's say, is really curious about how effective it looked like, I will describe what their spell looked like, and the effect that it had on the on the monster. And I will even tell them that it appears that their their magic, their offensive spell did less damage than what they were expecting based on the amount of energy that they had produced. And so it's kind of a way of saying, yeah, it made its saving throw without actually saying it made its saving throw. Same thing with perception checks and morale checks. I determine those, or sometimes I just hand wave them and make the determination, again, rulings, not rules, that this monster is intelligent. It's not unintelligent or semi-intelligent or just nil intelligence kind of thing. And so based on the circumstances, it's just going to look to run away. And I lean more towards that than anything. I don't like to have morale be based so much on dice rolls. And that includes, I never make the player characters roll morale. Um, they are in control of the morale of their own characters. They will know whether to turn and run or stand and fight, and if they don't, they could actually end up in a situation where player characters start dying for not knowing when to turn and run. So those are the key GM rules that I will either do in secret or in some cases hand wave and just use rulings, not rules. PC ability rolls. So perception and awareness checks. There's a kind of a disconnect if the player rolls and they fail their perception. They know that they're not going to get any information. Um, because they failed, but they wouldn't necessarily know, why they failed. It just becomes something that is less immersive to me than if I'm rolling for them and then I will tell them what they see and leave out what they don't see. Let's say they pass their perception, right? They make their perception roll and or an awareness check or something, and they rolled really, really well. Then they're going to expect information that that they wouldn't normally have gotten just from their own actions, their own situation, and their own circumstances that they're in, and that's something, or their own expression, what they expressed they were actually looking for. So I like to kind of have that hidden so it doesn't over gamify what they're experiencing at the same time. See, thief skills in particular. So, finding traps is not something that the player character is going to know when they failed. All right, because what it does is, and you don't want them to know when they failed, and it's like, because then they'll either automatically assume that there is a trap there when there might not be one, or or they it's not the same as if they actually were successful and found the trap. Then I would explain to them, yes, you have found the trap, but that requires a secret role for them. Same thing with hide in shadows, unless they're with a group, a party. Um, they're not going to necessarily know whether or not they're effectively hiding in shadows or move silently. That four was supposed to be a something else, a question mark, I think. Because sometimes I would do move silently, but if they're alone, they have no idea whether or not they're hiding in shadows. Um, they may know if they're moving silently, if they're like really making noise. So if I rolled a really bad roll for them moving silently, I would say you can tell you're making noise. Um, but if I only just slightly failed their move silently check, I wouldn't let them know. They will find out as soon as something automatically responds to them. All right, and so again, I like to keep those kinds of things a little bit unknown to the players. So the general rule that I utilize here is that GM rolls secretly for anything the PC senses wouldn't immediately be aware of, or anything that the PCs themselves didn't actually mention they are actively doing. And so that leads to a secret roll. And then the other things outside of rolling that you want to keep behind the game master's screen at the table is, and I've had this like in conventions, I'm sitting there and I have this small screen up, because Shadow Dark's screen is a very small screen. It's low, low level on it. And, I have a notepad where I'm jotting down little notes there, and that's where I'm keeping track of monster hit points and such. That's not something that you want kind of out in the open, because then usually there's someone sitting right next to you at these tables. It's like a table of 8, and I have myself and 6 players at that table, and there's almost invariably always someone right next to me, and so that's what I keep behind that screen. Is I'm not making any other rolls, all combat rolls. So all monster to hits, all monster damage, those are all done right in front of the players, because their characters would see if they got hit or not. Their characters will feel what kind of damage they received. I don't like to focus on the numbers themselves. I just want them to be aware, hey, I just got hit for 7 points. I'm not going to say, you got hit for 7 points, because again, that breaks immersion. You took a pretty significant hit, and then they can just at least know I'm jotting this down, so that they can keep track of their own HP. When they're attacking, I don't really say, oh, you did 14 points of damage to this. I will just reduce down the damage. I'm not going to tell them, hey, every round this creature is going to get back 2 hit points in regeneration. I will if they're really taking notice of it, or sometimes I'll do one of those perception awareness checks for them secretly and say, hey, you noticed that the injury that you inflicted like last round has already started to heal a little bit, that kind of thing. So to maintain the immersion of the experience taking place, certain things need to remain unknown to the player characters. I'm a firm believer that a game master's one of the game master's best ways to keep the players engaged is to create that separation between player knowledge and character knowledge, and get them, to be in the head of the character for as much as much time as possible during the course of running a game session, and and then that way we collectively can leave the game components kind of unstated and unworkable, like unobservable, I should say, and and focus on what the player characters can actually see, throughout the rest of their senses, right? So what can they see, smell, hear, feel, and notice taking place around them. So there are, in my opinion, very important things to remain secret, and then the other things should be done out in the open. That way, no one gets the sense of, hey, the dungeon master is fudging dice, and making us lose this fight on purpose or something along those lines, and that way you're not encouraging, players to fudge their dice rolls. Everyone is kind of rolling out in plain view of everyone else, and over time you're going to build that trust. And it's important to let the players know that yes, these are some of the things I'm going to be doing in plain view, but other things, just be aware that I'm using rulings, not rules. I might, make some decisions that I think will overall make more sense for the particular situation that you as players put your characters in, and and just change it up that way. In my view, as long as it makes sense, there's very little dispute over over what takes place during the game session. I'm not saying that I haven't had players that didn't argue against something or whatnot, but I think ultimately when I explain why I made a particular decision, usually after the fact, hopefully we all come to an understanding that these are the things that that I felt in that situation made the most sense. I can be proven wrong, by my players, especially my more experienced, lengthier, players that have been in my group for a long time. But we usually don't do that at the table in the moment. And in convention space, it's just a totally different dynamic. And so in convention space, as a player, I highly recommend that you go into that situation and just follow the game master's lead as to how the table is going to be run. It will most likely turn out the best for you, and you'll have the best experience that you can have in that situation. And then if you don't like the way it turns out, in the end, I mean, you can always, let the game master know, hey, you know what, I didn't bring it up then, but I just wanted to, mention that, for me, I didn't like this aspect. Constructive feedback or criticism is, should be welcomed by game masters, especially in like a convention type setting, because you want to make sure that you're creating the best experience that everyone can possibly have. Now, you're not going to make everyone 100% happy all the time. Um, that's not going to be a very good experience for some others, right? So, but you do want to make sure that you're using some very general rules for how you run your table. And having some secret roles is certainly a general rule that I think that you should bear in mind, and put into practice, on occasion as well. So anyway, I hope that kind of laid it out for you where my take is on the issue of, what roles should be made behind the screen, or what other information should you keep behind the screen, and then wherever else you're going to do out in the open. And these are discussions that you can have during your session 0 with your players, as well. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I do welcome your comments in the comments section. If there's anything else that I missed that, or I just didn't mention that you think I should also consider as a secret role, or something that you think I should always roll in out in the open, just let me know. I appreciate the input, advice, or whatever you have there. And as always, uh, I look forward to seeing you on a gaming screen sometime soon at a convention. My next convention is in November, and I'm really looking forward to that because I'm going to get to go to a convention and just be a player. I'm playing in a cartoon type of adventure, as well as Mothership, which I'm really stoked for because I haven't played that yet, and I'm looking forward to it. So I'll be giving more details about that convention once we get into the start of November, and putting that out there for you to hopefully take a look at that. And if you're in the area, I'd love to. I already know that I have at least one player playing in that Mothership game that has played in my games at several other conventions as well. So I'm really stoked about seeing some familiar faces. So anyway, thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to subscribe and like and share and comment in the comments section. And you all have a great rest of your day. I am going to close out with my end screen, and I'm going to test to see if my music that I created, the AI music that I have composed, comes through. So this is kind of like the theme music of this channel going forward until I come across something else that I prefer. But here we go.